I saw it myself, standing right there on the edge of the observation deck where the air always tastes like burnt copper and recycled oxygen. I remember the exact moment Kira's hand closed around Von Kor's wrist. It was a soft sound, almost nothing at all, but the impact sent a vibration through the floor plates that I felt in my own marrow. Her skin was flushed, hot to the touch, and her eyes stayed locked on his with a focus that felt heavy, physical even. She wasn't just holding him, she was grounding him. Von Kor looked down at that small, pale hand against his dark armor, and for the first time in his life, I saw a master warrior actually look afraid. Truth is, the morning hadn't started with that kind of intensity. It started with a dismissal. I was there in the briefing room when Von Kor tossed her file onto the holographic projector like it was trash. He didn't even look at her. He just kept talking about the gravity wells of the Xylosian homeworld and how a girl from a backwater rock like Terra 9 would break under the first real atmospheric shift. I remember the way Kira just stood there, her hands clasped behind her back, nodding politely. She looked so small compared to the jagged, metallic architecture of the Zenith. She looked like she belonged in a library, not a combat ward. But then came the sparring session. The hum of the facility's engines always provides a steady baseline, but as they stepped into the ring, the frequency seemed to change. Von Kor was moving with that terrifying Xylosian speed, his limbs cutting through the air like blades. And Kira, she just drifted. It was the strangest thing I've ever seen. Every time he swung, she was just somewhere else. She wasn't even panting. I remember leaning forward, trying to see if she was using some kind of tech, but there was nothing. No glow, no flicker, just her. I checked the monitors because I thought maybe the gravity dampeners were acting up. But no, everything was green. Well, until it wasn't. Her heart rate was dropping. Most people, they get scared, their pulse goes through the roof. But Kira's pulse was slowing down, settling into a deep, rhythmic thrum that matched the ship's core. She was entering a headspace I didn't recognize. I don't know. Maybe Von Kor felt it too, because he started to lose his cool. He increased his velocity, his strikes becoming a blur of lethal intent. He finally threw a high-velocity punch, the kind that's supposed to end a fight instantly. And that is when it happened. She didn't flinch. She just reached out and stopped him dead in his tracks with one hand. The facility scanners didn't just beep. They started to scream. Crimson lights flooded the room, reflecting off the sweat on Kira's forehead and the wide, shocked eyes of her instructor. The display flashed a warning I'd never seen outside of a star collapse. Class S Cataclysm. The scanner didn't malfunction. It finally woke up to what was actually standing in the middle of that room. I remember the stinging behind my eyes from the sudden glare, but I couldn't look away. Kira didn't let go. She leaned in just a fraction, her breathing steady and warm against the cold metal of the room. She gave him this little smile, a smile that chills a veteran's secondary heart. And I realized right then that we had all been idiots. She wasn't fragile. She was just being polite. I watched Von Kor's face transition from shock to a kind of quiet realization. He tried to pull back, just an inch, but he might as well have been trying to move a mountain. The air between them was electric, thick with the smell of ozone and the heat radiating from Kira's skin. She wasn't wearing a suit, just those standard-issue fatigues. But her muscles were dense, evolved under a sun that demands perfection just to keep your bones from snapping. Look, I've seen Xylosians tear through hull plating, but I've never seen a hand look so much like a vice. I think the most dangerous thing about her wasn't the strength, though. It was the way she looked at him with actual concern. I saw her thumb brush against the seam of his gauntlet, a small human gesture of comfort, even as she held him paralyzed. She let go then, the metal of his armor bearing the slight indentations of her grip. The room that felt entirely too small for the three of us. I watched the way her eyes softened as the red lights of the emergency override faded into a soft, steady amber. She didn't look like a cataclysm. She looked like a girl who was tired of being underestimated. Vancor's breathing was ragged, his lungs struggling to process the sudden surge of adrenaline, and I could see the fine tremors in his fingers as he finally lowered his guard. I remember the way the ship itself seemed to groan, a low-frequency vibration of metal and energy that felt like a long, drawn-out sigh. Kira stepped closer, and for a heartbeat, I thought she might actually embrace him. There was this proximity between them, this raw, unshielded closeness that felt more intimate than any sparring match had a right to be. She reached out, her fingers hovering just an inch from the scorched mark on his chest plate, where his own energy had backfired. I saw the electric spark of skin meeting metal as she finally made contact, a tiny static discharge that made her flinch, but she didn't pull away. She was checking on him. Truth is, I don't think Vancor had ever been touched like that. Not as a warrior, and certainly not by a recruit. He looked at her, really looked at her, and I saw the heavy decision being made in his mind. He wasn't just seeing a soldier anymore. He was seeing the cost of her evolution. He saw the crushing gravity of Terra 9 in the way she carried her own weight, and I saw him yield, not in combat but in spirit. He told her later that he'd never seen anything so beautiful and so terrifying at the same time. I was there, leaning against the bulkhead, watching them talk in the dim glow of the holograms. Kira laughed, a light, genuine sound that broke the tension left over from the fight. She told him she just wanted to be helpful. And that's the thing, isn't it? The most dangerous thing in the galaxy is a human being helpful, because they have to be so incredibly careful not to destroy you in the process. I watched them walk out together, his hand resting firmly, respectfully on her shoulder. I think they forgot I was even there. But I'll keep the legend. I'll tell people about the day the scanners finally realized what a human was. I'll remember the heat, the thud of that heart, and the way a girl from a death world taught a master how to be brave enough to be gentle.